Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage our panelists for the session, the intersection of innovation and intention, shaping the next store experience.
Welcome everybody. Welcome to New York on this beautiful MLK afternoon. Glad to have you here. Thanks for taking a little bit of your time from this busy show to spend with us. My name is Frederick Carlgren. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Communications at Toshiba Global Commerce Solutions, and I have some fantastic guests with me today that I'm proud to be on the stage with. I'm going to have them introduce themselves here in a second. We have Kevin from Wayfair and Yevgeny from Toshiba. So Kevin, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Kevin O'Riordan. I head up, as you said, physical retail and supply chain engineering at Wayfair. It's actually fantastic to have both together in one organization, which is new to me at Wayfair. I've got a background in kind of high volume consumable retail as well, about 10 plus years in the industry.
Oh.
Hi everyone, I'm Yevgeny Tsarulnik. I'm heading innovation incubation for Toshiba. Glad to be here, share some experience with everyone and have a discussion with these great people.
So as we look at this quote, an innovation is doing new things, and we're going to talk about that intersection between innovation and intention and really what is driving the next store experience. And so we're going to do that, and we're going to share a little bit of the new innovation research that Toshiba has recently published, and you're going to see at the end of this session a QR code for your ability to access that. So I'm going to start with that in terms of the fact that innovation does really matter. And a couple of interesting stats from the study. 82% of retailers said that they were either at par or behind their immediate peer group when it came to innovation culture and strategy and really implementing innovation. And staying ahead of the evolving shopper expectation, Kevin, was the number one reason that they said drove their innovation initiatives, and yet almost half said they don't really have a common even definition of innovation in their enterprise. So that's kind of your first question is, how do you define innovation at Wayfair, and what does it mean to you when we talk about that in this context?
Yeah, it's a good question. I wouldn't say we actively go out and talk about what the definition is at Wayfair. I think it's, and I love this definition in particular because I think a lot of people, if you ask them what the definition of innovation is, they'll say, hey, I know when I see it, or things are getting better, or things are changing. I think this really sums it up really well. And I think, when we think about innovation at Wayfair, we think about trying to make things better all the time. And I think, if you look at the kind of evolution or the incremental evolution of change, in the industry, I actually think the bulk of innovation happens in smaller steps. If you look back, say 10, 15 years, and you think about omnichannel retail, it's not a new concept, right? We were probably talking about it in 2005, a little bit later. If you look at where we are today, we are fantastically evolved, right? There are some big changes that everyone had to make that happen, like the evolution of last mile delivery networks and crowdsourcing, were game changers for a lot of organizations, but there were a lot of small steps along the way that have been hugely impactful, in service of that big idea of omnichannel. So, at Wayfair, we think about how do we make things better every day. We kind of build that into all the teams all the time, and that's kind of how we tackle it.
Okay. Hey, Yevgeny, you obviously come from the vendor side. You've been in the retail industry for quite a while. And, so what's your perspective when you talk to clients and maybe focusing on this word intention too? What's that purpose and intention that drives that innovation thinking?
Well, at first I would say many of us will confuse innovation with invention. Invention is really part of the innovation. It's not necessarily the target that you can invent something that's happening accidentally. Innovation is about a constant way to get yourself in the mode where you can innovate or iterate on the existing technologies or existing and new process that you would like to implement within your environments. And to me, innovation is all about that known 5 C's. You know, it's about the culture, internal culture for the company you work for, and where you innovate is very, very important. You know, it's sometimes and often it's enough to say, you know, you can do better from some reputable management in order to innovate within the company. It's about the collaboration. You know, it's much faster to innovate when you collaborate either internally or externally with different companies. About the making sure you know which constraints you're really trying to resolve and target those. Again, that's not about the invention, it's about innovating on those constraints. Obviously, for vendors like us, it's about competition. For retailers, it's also about competition, making sure you're working towards that target. And finally, the catalysts. Everyone knows the biggest catalyst in the last 3 years was the pandemic, the COVID that hit all of us, right? How many of us innovated? So bottom line for me, innovation is really about constant and always evolvement, and most important, pushing all of the environment that is around you towards that. So that's...
Okay, thank you. So Kevin, it's been an exciting past 12 months for you with the opening up of AllModern and Jocelyn Main physical retail stores. And so when you're thinking about what does that next gen store experience look like, what are some of those things that you're thinking about as you're having those conversations?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, you know, Wayfair learned a lot of lessons, and I think one of the core lessons we learned as we opened up these new stores, and we actually learned before this like latest wave, is that the fundamentals still really matter in physical retail, like the merchandising, how well the store operates, the brand, the look and feel, like fundamentally critical, because, you know, consumers come to stores because they want to have an in-person organic shopping experience, particularly in home goods. I mean, that, you know, people want to come and touch and feel what we sell. So we learned that lesson, you know, 2 years ago by opening up a test store, which is a fantastic experience. But I'll say, you know, from a consumer perspective, probably was a bit of a failure. It didn't have nearly enough items in it. Operationally, it was super dodgy. I mean, there are horror stories of like associates run into the cash machines to make change for customer shopping. I mean, it was not a proud moment for us. But the learning there was like, you really need to get the fundamentals correct. I think also, like, we were really fortunate, and we recognized that we were already a digital company, and in some ways we'd done some of the hard work first. Like, we're trying to sell couches and home goods and really tactile merchandise to people online only, which is, that's tough to do. And we realized that since we had such a great digital presence, we could kind of leapfrog the technology journey a bit. Like, we didn't necessarily have to have a digital transformation. We had to have a physical transformation to be good at physical, but still be true to our roots of omnichannel, and because our customers expect us to be kind of good and transactionally nice. So we spent a lot of time just getting the fundamentals correct, making sure we didn't kind of diverge our platforms, one catalog, one payment, one inventory system, and whatnot, so we could scale quickly. And I think that showed up in the experience for our customers. We're maintaining a really high NPS. They've come back and they shop a lot more. We're in a position to scale now. So, you know, in some ways, getting the basics right and going slow so you can move fast later was fundamental for us in the first year.
So yeah, even just in the last day and a half here, we've had a lot of interesting conversations with retailers, and you spend a lot of time having those kind of conversations. What, you know, we just heard the Wayfair perspective, you know, what are some of the other things that you're hearing as you're having those conversations about next gen store and innovative experiences?
Yeah, it's a great question. It depends when you ask it. Are you asking about yesterday or asking about today? Because it's changing every day, right? So at the high level, I'll say if we're asking about today, we are at the perfect storm, and that's what we're hearing from the retailers. Inflation is up, and it's going to be up. We don't know what will happen with the recession. Will it hit us? Will it be a soft landing? Is it going to be hard landing? The stores, from the infrastructure perspective, from the touch points perspective, there is a freedom to shop everywhere and anywhere, which is bringing a big concern around the shrink and around other things that are going on in the store. All of that with the increased need for the better customer service, and competition, all big competition around that. All of these things coming all together into what I call perfect storm, and that has to be addressed. That's what coming at the high level from retailers today. Obviously, there are obvious things that are always there. How do I improve operationally? How do I increase my customer service in the store? How do I make better revenue? How do I compete? And things like this. So these are the main things that are going around. And I'll just mention maybe one more thing that is very, very important for the retailers today is all of that, how do I achieve this thing with my current existing systems, with what I have today in the store? How do I connect the dots between different omni-channels that I've got, and how do I do it in the way where from channel to channel the experience is similar, kind of what Kevin was going to. So it's all of those. I know it's many, but each one of those is at the top of the retailer's mind today.
Yeah, so clearly what you're saying is innovation is not a one-time thing, and it's not just gimmicks or flashy new technology. It really starts with a deep understanding of the customers and your business and operations. So let's transition a little bit to how does innovation work, right? When you're thinking about it. A few other stats from the study that we just did. 28% of retailers strongly agree that they have a well-defined process for innovation across the enterprise. 22% are equally satisfied that they are encouraging rewarding risk-taking for innovation. Found that fascinating, because at the end of the day, when you think about innovation, you have a general assumption that you're going to have those moments that you're not going to be successful. You got to fail fast. You got to keep trying and iterating. So that was quite interesting if the culture doesn't support that. And from a maturity standpoint, 78% said they were only low to medium in confidence that they could pivot on a dime and really be responsive quickly to the needs of their business. So, from that perspective, Kevin, how do you organizationally, get around and work to address those kind of what we just heard there?
Yeah, I mean, Wayfair is kind of blessed by the fact that we're still founder-led. So it's kind of like innovation and experimentation is kind of really baked in the culture. The founders are still deeply involved in the business. They understand everything that's happening. We talk about kind of how we're investing, what we're going after. And I think, culturally really valuing the change and continuous change is important, because I think that allows you to go off and take chances. The stores really emerged out of an experiment, 2 years ago, to go off and see what we could do in physical retail in a quarter or less. And that's how we realized, A, that we need to go and do a lot more. And B, like I said, their learnings in that were fantastic. It didn't necessarily go well for the customer. I think also we spend a lot of time trying to make sure that we're operationally super good, because I think there's an ethos out there around move fast and break things. That's how you innovate. And I agree with that sentiment that it's good to move fast. It's good to challenge things, assumptions and whatnot. I think sometimes if you're moving fast and breaking things, and at the end of the day you end up with a bunch of broken things, it gets hard to kind of continue to run experiments and understand if you're actually making things better. So we try to make all the fundamentals, the basics of our operations run really nicely, so we can go off and take chances and see how they end up. Yeah.
So one of the comments that we heard when we had a meeting with the CIO last year, it was not Kevin. After having really focusing on what are the business challenges we're trying to solve, how does some of the things that we're doing at Toshiba potentially help address that? And the CIO said, so what you're telling me is that we finally have an opportunity to do reckless experimentation. And that is not a phrase you typically hear in conversation with CIOs, but it seems to be a change in, look, status quo isn't good enough anymore. So, what do you think about that in terms of, what's your comment to that?
Yeah, first of all, it's so reckless I can't even pronounce it. To me, Absolutely. This is that was so important to hear it from the retailer that reckless experimentation is the key. For us, Toshiba internally, it was the same challenge just about 5 years ago. Exactly the same. How do we experiment in a way where we can take chances, where we as a company can truly support a big number of experiments without any fear of failing, right? Because without those experiments, we cannot really move forward. We cannot learn, and it's okay to fail, but fail fast. Many of you probably have heard about this. We couldn't fail fast just about 5-6 years ago. It was taking us a lot of time. It was very expensive. We're taking that experience to the retailers, to our customers, and we're saying you have to have your foundation in place, built in a way where you can truly support big number of experiments, X hundred of those experiments that you've done before, and make sure that culturally you support that internally, that you can fail, and it's okay to fail, as long as you can recover and move on and do it fast. So again, first I would say that reckless experimentation is the key for us internally. We didn't call it this way, but now we do. And we're taking it forward to retailers. And most important, we're building the foundation, the architecturally, both technologically and business-wise, where retailers is allowed to have that freedom to do that recklessly.
Let me add some of that. I think the other thing on the innovation front is, we Wayfair, we treat our bacon in everything we do. And I do think you have to set aside some investment and some teams for like Horizon 3, Horizon 5, like bigger experiments. I think the important thing also that the organization has to be ready to do, or the people or the leaders, is decide when to shut things down based on what criteria. Because it's really easy to let things go for a long time. Just keep running the investment. The promise all seems about 18 months out. It's always 18 months out. Some of those things might pan out, but some of them won't. And you have to have a framework to kind of shut those things down so you can pivot that investment elsewhere. If you don't have that, then you end up just running things for a long time, and maybe some other macro event comes along and makes you shut it down. But that's a really important discipline to have in the organization, is when to shut it down, under what criteria.
Okay, excellent. So ultimately, we're here at NRF, and from what I can tell, there's a few technologies that are being showcased. So let's talk a little bit about technology and the role that it has. Maybe before we get into specific technologies, where does that come into the conversation, Kevin, as you're thinking about what business outcomes you're trying to achieve, and where do you start to look at, okay, now what is the technology questions we have to ask, and the role that it's going to play? Obviously, not every piece of innovation has the same level of technology involved in it. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a bit of a Luddite. I don't know how I think about these things. I actually think technology isn't necessarily the first question you should ask or talk about. Certainly, I mean, there are innovations we can all think of where technology is critical, because it actually is the thing that moves the bar. It's got the biggest leverage. It's the kind of thing you can invent. I mean, software is incredibly flexible. I do think, however, that you really need to think about the kind of the problem you're trying to solve, either for the customer or for the supplier, or the experience you're trying to create, independent of the technology, before you start constraining your thinking. Because I think sometimes if you start with the technology, you end up with like VR headsets in stores, which no one uses and kind of stink. So I actually think it's an ingredient. I think it needs to be kind of early. I don't know that it's necessarily the first thing that you do, because I think you have to decide kind of what kind of problem you're going to try to solve. And that might be an experience problem, might be kind of a customer service problem, a digital problem. So we bring the technology in, I'd say early, but not necessarily at the beginning. Ultimately, I think the technology oftentimes determines the feasibility. So like if it's not there in the first third, like usually, it's the critical enabler when you want to go to launch time, but not necessarily the first thing that, at least for me.
Now, obviously, as a solution provider and partner with retailers like Wayfair in the industry, technology means something different to us, and we have our point of view. So can you share a little bit about how we think about that? The same question, right? Even though we ultimately are looking at what role technology plays, where does that come into? You own innovation.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll share the experience of how we at Toshiba, how we built innovation. Obviously, again, innovation is about what you're trying to get to, and then, Kevin, you mentioned the ingredients that you need in order to get to that place. So we build our teams in a way where the very first step into this is obviously we are about technology. Are those experiments with specific technologies, like a small Lego pieces that we are proving to ourselves whether that technology is ready for prime time or not. And it's like boxes of Lego that we will put with the label on it, ready, not ready, almost ready, and things like this. And then there is another step where there is a POC happening, the proof of concept with the customer. That's where the technology is actually meeting the business, and does that technology or combination of those technologies bring together the right result on ROI or on any other level that is being a mission for that specific solution. Finally, when those things are successfully done or not done, as you said, there is a next step. What do you do with this? Do you basically put it on the shelf for later time? You record your results out of it in order to learn and pass it through, or you can actually push that technology into the actual product. And that's where the final stage is happening, where the POC is done, the technology is proven, and then it's moving into the product. By doing this kind of decoupling of the overall process in innovation, we being able to achieve exactly what I was talking about, fail fast. Guess what? 8 out of 10 experiments are failing. So that was the key for us to really move as fast as possible. And then finally, I'll say again, technology or the platform part of that technology, the foundational part of that technology has to enable that. Without that, everything is just about talking. So we started that process internally maybe 4 years ago, and by building the right foundation on the technological side, that's helping us to move forward that way. So.
Yeah, so it's a lot about speed, agility, and being able to, to be able to reimagine that retail experience that you're trying to drive. And scale is a big part of that, ultimately, when you're looking at getting it out and ensuring the reliability of those systems. Do you want to add anything to that, Kevin?
I was looking at the slide here, and I think also again, the technology is super important. Like if you look at this slide, it reminded me of kind of how we arrived at what we did here. This is a picture of us using mobile app to scan an ESL that's inside a frame, because we want customers to be able to shop our stores digitally, fully, if they'd like to, which we did on day zero. The cool, innovative thing in here isn't necessarily the mobile app, it's not the ESL per se, but we put this really super nice frame around it to kind of create a high quality experience in stores for shoppers and associates. And a lot of people inside Wayfair were against electronic labels, they think they're ugly. You put a nice frame around it, it feels like it's paper, and all of a sudden you've got a fantastic experience. It makes the shopper's life easier, and it saves a ton of time for associates. So it kind of surrounded by technology, but the key piece was kind of the frame.
Yeah, it's almost when that technology becomes invisible to the consumer in a way. It's just a natural interaction that you want to have that adds value and makes that experience better, more convenient, easier. And I think that's so.
Metal frame.
Yevgeny, let's go a little bit deeper on that technology question, and I'm curious, what do you see on the horizon that really interests you, that you think can really have an impact on where that next gen store experience is headed? What are your thoughts on what those technologies might be?
Yeah, so probably everyone heard about Industrial Revolution 4.0, 5.0, and everyone believes today we are at this 5.0 stage. And the more I'm digging into this, the more I can see that this is where we are right now. How to put those technologies now into work. We experimented a lot with AI, we experimented a lot with the edge computing, with the digital twin, with all sorts of different technologies. I'm really excited looking forward at how those technologies will meet together and truly will start producing the results we are looking at. Because it's not anymore technologies that are serving specific use cases. These are technologies that are learning by themselves. These are the technologies that will help us become much better, much more efficient. So I am seeing technologies like edge computing, technologies like artificial intelligence, AR, VR, and other type of fusion, sensory and things like this, playing together, orchestrated in the way where that will change the retail. Change it, but change it in the very scalable manner. Will provide the right level of sustainability, will provide the right level of maintainability and everything else. So I think the future is pretty bright for us using all of this technology. So we at Toshiba truly betting that Industrial Revolution 5.0 is at the rise, and we are leading it in the retail.
So Kevin, back to you in terms of that next gen store experience, and we've learned a lot over the course of the last 12 months. Of course, in what that takes and what getting those store experiences to really be memorable and excellent, what that takes. You have firsthand experience with that. So what are some of the practical things? You gave us a good example based on that image just a second ago. Anything else from practical examples of how we've been able to create those unique store experiences that I know you were looking for when you went down this journey?
I think we took a pretty hard position once we kind of realized that the digital physical journey, we could really leapfrog kind of the convergence and transformation stage. We took a really hard view that we were going to keep, we were going to manage all of our data, our catalog APIs, our pricing, our items. We didn't want to pump, any data out of our platform and other platforms. I think Alera, the technology platform, is well set up to do those API integrations and essentially kind of allow us to own our own experience on one side of it, but still have a great customer experience inside Alera, inside Toshiba. That worked really well. You had all the hooks there. We're able to kind of iterate and build things quickly. That's one thing in particular. And the other thing we really talked about is that our idea was that when you download the Wayfair app and you want to buy a bunch of furniture for your home, you don't go through a training course, right? You just pick it up and you use it. And I think the experience for associates and the checkout experience should be that easy. So we had this kind of no training mantra. So we did a bunch of front-end user experience work and research to figure out what's a great way to build checkout from the associate perspective, make it easy for the customer. And you're all able to keep up with us on that. We got to a good result there. So that was, I think, also a game changer.
So, we got a few minutes left, and we're sitting here in the innovation lab, and there's a lot of great innovation startups and other pretty fantastic technologies here, Yevgeny. And as we're thinking ahead, 2023, and what's next? What do you see on the horizon? What do you see in the year ahead, and where we're going as an industry?
So first of all, I think we all collectively here at NRF, all of the companies, the amazing companies that I'm seeing here, especially this floor, those companies that are pushing us, disrupting, and actually doing a great job in pushing the innovation into this industry. I think we all planted the right seeds for the last 5 years, and it's amazing time to put it all together. I believe Toshiba built the infrastructure and the foundation. We call it Alera. I think Kevin mentioned that, which is allowing all of these companies, including the retailers, to collaborate together and push that forward as a one system or one solution that provides end-to-end seamless experience for the retailers and the consumers. So, like I said previously, I think we have a great future to fulfill here with all of these technologies. I think this community is helping us a lot, helping retailers a lot. So let's rock and roll. That's what I think about the future.
I like that. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of opportunity, no doubt. And Kevin, how about your view on 2023? What and obviously it's hard not to be energized being here at NRF. But what are your thoughts and or kind of lessons learned and things that you see for the year ahead for those of us in the audience?
I mean, I think talk about Wayfair because that's what I think about. 99% of the time. We're still in startup mode in our physical retail journey. I think going from digital to physical is a lot easier. You still need to be thoughtful, and if you're thoughtful, you can keep your platforms together and kind of set yourself up for innovation in the future. We're working on large format stores. There's a whole level of operational complexity there we need to go solve. So we're super excited about the technology we see out here and the work we're doing today.
Well, I want to thank my panelists. Kevin, thank you very much. Yevgeny, thank you. And thank all of you in the audience as well for coming and spending this time with us. I hope you got some valuable insights. And I hope you'll stop by. Come down to booth 3323 and spend a little time. We'd love to have further conversations with you. And I wish you all the best. Have a great rest of your afternoon and a fantastic NRF. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks, Frederick.
Thank you for attending this session. Don't forget to rate this session using the NRF mobile app. The NRF team reads every comment and appreciates your feedback.